Hello everyone, Mark with High Tech Legion. I have here next to me the latest release in the Define series from Fractal Design, the Fractal Design Define R5. In this video we're going to be building a computer inside this case, taking a look at all the features that Fractal Design has built into their newest release in the Define series, see what kind of benefits we get from the Define R5 as opposed to the previous releases from Fractal Design. Take a look at all the features that are included, go ahead and show you some temperatures that this case is capable of, what cooling options can be installed, what kind of water cooling, what kind of air cooling, and give you an overall review of the Fractal Design Define R5. Stay tuned. So first we'll go ahead and take a look at the overall design of the case here. The coloring is very nice between the plastic and the metal. We can see the front door here, which is a brushed aluminum appearance. Although it is plastic, so it is very minimalistic as far as actually, compared to actual brushed aluminum, but it still has a nice sleek design to the front of the case. If we open up the front door here, which is reversible, we can see our sound deadening material inside here. Our latches for our front door. The front door could also be swapped and flipped open the other direction. We have our nice fan grille here with the Fractal Design logo on the inside. That is very easily removable. Filter mesh inside, very easy to clean to be able to get access to our front fans. We also see our toolless, very easily removable 5 1/4 inch drive bay covers in the front. That just kind of lock into place. We have a blue LED in the center here when the system is turned on, and then we have here a 3-speed fan controller. So we'll go ahead and put our front mesh back in. As you can see, very easy to pull out and remove. Clips locks back in place, and the front door with just a slight push. There is a little bit of restriction to it, but it does not have to be slammed. Just a slight push and it locks very nicely in place. We rotate the case slightly, we see our full vented sides on the front here for our front intake fans that will go through the filter before it gets to the fans. Go to the top of our front panel. We can see our front panel audio, our recessed reset button, our power button that does depress, our 2 USB 2.0 ports, and our 2 USB 3.0 ports. Also, we can see the color matching between the plastic and the metal, and the plastic Moduvent vents that are on the top that are very easily removable to open up this for our top ventilation. On the side exterior of the case, we see it has one Moduvent vent here, which again, there's just little pins that push and clip and lock from the inside. And we have our side panel, which does have 2 thumb screws, does have a place to screw in 2 thumb screws, but it has the nice latching system. So with a simple slide down of the latch, we can see it's slotted in the front, lines up with the slot in the front of the case. Simply goes in, slides back, latches, you're all set, side panel on and off in just a few seconds. No thumb screws to worry about, although they are there if you wanted to put them on so that the case wasn't easy to access. If we look inside the side panel again, we see the sound deadening material. We see our vent here, that this is actually, our Moduvent is actually screwed on from the inside on the side panel. And there is sound deadening material inside here that could be removed if you were going to mount a fan on the side of the case. This case also does come in a windowed side panel version. Inside the case here, we have our 7 expansion slots in the back of the case. We can see they're nice and white, a little bit of accent just to accent as well as these fans that are included in the case. We have our 8 3.5 inch hard drive bays in the front of the case, which are toolless, slide out very easily. They're not toolless, I should say. There are screws that need to be screwed into the hard drives to hold the hard drives in place, but to remove the bay, it's very simple to squeeze these together and slide it out to mount our hard drives. There's two mounting locations for your 3.5-inch hard drives. One that would pull it a little closer towards the side panel of the case to give you a little bit more clearance for cable management in the back. We also have thumb screws here to remove the 3.5-inch drive bays. These are also compatible with 2.5-inch hard drives via these 4 holes or SSDs. There are also two 2.5-inch hard drive or SSD mounts on the back of the motherboard tray. That makes for a total of up to 8 3.5-inch drives and up to 10 2.5-inch drives or SSDs. Fractal Design has included 2 GP14 140mm fans, which are a hydraulic bearing fan optimized for airflow of the case. There is more mounting capability in the front. The 140mm in the back, it is adjustable up and down. We'll take a look at that as we take a look at the back. Inside here, our standard motherboard tray, we can see our center standoff has a pin, so when we put our motherboard, it's going to hold it in place for us as we affix the rest of the screws into the case. It can hold a mini ITX, micro ATX, and ATX motherboard. We can see inside the case, we have our rubber grommets for our cable management on the bottom, along the side, and 2 up here at the top. And we can see through to the back panel, also has the sound deadening material included. Our front panel connectors are fished through the bottom there for us, fan connector from the front. And the fan controller that is on the front of the case, the 3-speed fan controller, is capable of controlling up to 3 fans. On the top of the case, the Moduvent vents that we were talking about, there's little plastic clips on the inside. So to remove these, you very easily just push up at the portion towards the front of the case and then lift and pull it out. You can see right there, Moduvent. These are also have the sound deadening material on the bottom of them. When we remove them, we can see our nice mesh in the top to open up our cooling solutions at the top of the case. We can see that our holes for our fans are offset, so we can mount the fans or radiators more towards the front of the case to give us additional clearing for our motherboard in the motherboard tray. If we go ahead and take a look at the rear of the case, pretty standard with our 7 expansion slots, our bottom mounted power supply. Our back panel is held on with 2 thumb screws that do not remove from the panel. They stay attached to the panel when you loosen them. There is no latching mechanism like there is on the front side panel, which while we're looking at the back panel here, we'll go ahead and show you how easy that is. We can line up our panel in the front. Go ahead. It's that simple. That latching mechanism slides up into the slots here, pulled down, and the panel removes. And of course our I/O here, and we can see our slotted mounts here for our 120 millimeter and 140 millimeter fan or water cooling radiator. If we go ahead and take a look at the back side of the case, again we can see our 3.5-inch hard drives, and as I said, the 5.25-inch bays are also modular. You can see the thumb screws here that just loosen to remove the 5.25-inch drive bays. You can focus in on some of the cable management that Fractal Design has included in the Define R5. Again, we can see our SSD mounts here, which is just 1 thumb screw, and they swivel out and come right off. The thumb screw does stay attached. Put your 4 screws through, slide that back into place, tighten down your thumb screw, all set to go. So there's 2 brackets for your SSDs or 2.5-inch drive back here. We can see our cable for our front fan. There is another slot for our other fan to run through from the front of the case. And then we have these nice Velcro straps that do remove. So if you're more used to using zip ties, you can use zip ties with these included brackets. We can see our connections for our front panel fan controller, and then it is a SATA power connection for the front fan controller. 5.25-inch drive bays remove. 3.5-inch drive bays remove. The 3-in-1 drive bay here could be moved up to the top. The 5-in-1 could be moved down to the bottom. If we go ahead and swivel the case around, there is also mounting over here for one of the hard drive cages. So if you were to remove, let's remove the top, which again, the thumb screws stay in place. So you don't have to worry about dropping, losing stuff. Loosen the 2 thumb screws, it slides out. We have our, as you can see here, little mechanism so that everything attaches. Now, our bottom drive cage here, we remove our 2 thumb screws. There's 4 screws from the bottom. Look at that. Nice chrome feet, just a nice accent that Fractal Design has put on the case just to go with the overall aesthetics of the case. As well as our full length fan filter. The fan filter, simply open the front door like so, and the fan filter slides out from the front the whole length of the case. Line it back up, slides right back in, locks right in place. Now if we remove this dust filter from the bottom, we can see our 4 screws here that hold our 3.5-inch bottom hard drive tray in place. We can take that, we can move it over here, we can slightly adjust it from side to side. You can see the slotted design here. So that can move over here. We can have the 5-in-1 drive bay in the front. We can have the 3-in-1 drive bay in the front. We could have this mounted over here like so. We could have the 3-in-1 mounted over here, or we could have this removed and just the 5 up here. Very flexible and modular design. Now the 5.25-inch drive bays at the top here with these thumb screws work the same way. Now one thing I will note about this case as well, a lot of times when these parts are modular, these actually do completely remove. They're put in with thumb screws, yet you have to get out a screwdriver to loosen the thumb screws the first time. With the Fractal Design Define R5, that's not the case. All the thumb screws are put so that you can simply come in here without a screwdriver, loosen all of these thumb screws, like so. There are 4 total that hold in our 5.25-inch drive bay. Pull that right out. Now, with these 3.5-inch bays removed, we have a wide open case. So while we're looking at this, let's go ahead and talk about the flexibility for radiators. In the front of the case, you can have a 120, 140, 240, 280, or up to 360 millimeter radiator. Of course, with all of these drives and the 5.25-inch bays removed. With the 5.25-inch bays still in place, you could have up to a 280 millimeter radiator that would come right up to the bottom of your 5.25-inch drive bays. With all the hard drive bays removed, of course, you'd have plenty of thickness for extra thick radiators and fans on top of that, and still have clearance for all of your hardware. In the top of the case, we have capability for a 420, 360, 280, 240, 140, and 120 millimeter radiators. There is a thickness limitation on the 420 and 280 and 140 millimeter radiators because of the confliction that it would have with the hardware. So there is a limitation of your radiator and your fans to be no more than 55 millimeters. So if you were to have a thinner radiator in the top, you could go with a 420 or a 280 or a 140, and you'd have, say your 25 millimeter, 27 millimeter radiator and 25 millimeter fans, and you would have plenty of clearance. But you couldn't use your thick radiator in the top if you were going to use the 140 millimeter fan versions, the 140, 280, or 420, because of the drop down. You couldn't have more than a 55 millimeter because it would conflict with your hardware that would be mounted inside the case. On the back of the case, we can mount a 120 or 140 millimeter radiator. And on the bottom of the case, we can mount a 120 or 240 millimeter radiator. If you were to remove all these drive cages and mount a 240mm radiator in the bottom, that would limit the length of your power supply to 165mm. A lot of features packed inside, plenty of space for water cooling. We know that a lot of people are moving over to water cooling now with some of the chips becoming hotter and hotter. You do also have capabilities for your nice tall air cooling units. Let's see, CPU coolers of up to 180mm in height. We have the two 5 1/4 inch bays, 8 3.5 inch hard drive bays that can also accommodate 2.5 inch hard drives or SSDs, 2 additional on the back. 8 3.5 inch total, 10 2.5 inch total. 9 fan positions. You have your power supplies up to 190mm or 170mm with a bottom 120mm or 140mm fan installed. Without that, you can have a power supply of up to 300mm here in the bottom. So if you're not going to mount a fan on the bottom of this case, it will support your longer power supply units, even with your hard drive cages in place. Graphics cards, you have a length of up to 310mm with the hard drive cages installed. So you could still fit your longer graphics cards, but with the hard drives removed, or even just the top drive, because your motherboard's only going to come down to here, you can fit up to a graphics card length of 440mm. There's 20 to 35mm of space for cable routing behind the motherboard tray. And as we can see, one feature of this case, the motherboard tray itself is kind of recessed. You can see this angle here where it recesses back. So if you have an ATX motherboard that's a little bit longer than the standard ATX fitment, you may want to take notice of that before purchasing this case. It does only support mini ITX, micro ATX, and ATX. So now that we've done a quick overview of the Fractal Design R5, Fractal Design Define R5 case, that could be a tongue twister, we'll go ahead and take a look at the accessories that Fractal Design includes. In our baggie here, we have our user's guide, which goes through pretty much everything that we're showing you here, and then this nice little box with our accessories, which will be our screws. There are no standoffs pre-affixed to the motherboard tray, except for the center pin that the motherboard will rest on. Everything is included inside this baggie. So what we have here for screwing down our standoffs onto our motherboard tray, it's like a little plastic nylon Phillips head screw on one side, motherboard standoff fitment on the other side to affix those to our motherboard tray. We have rubber grommets for all of our 3.5 inch drive bays to hold our hard drives in place. Again, to help eliminate the noise that may be caused from vibration of the standard 3.5 inch hard drives. And of course, our screw accessory kit, our standoffs, thumb screws, all of the accessories included that we need, separated in neat little baggies to install all of our components in this case. So now that we've taken a look at an overview of the case itself and all of the accessories that are included, I'm going to go ahead and get a system built inside the case. We're going to go through some of the installation process with you so that you can see some things that you may run into when building a computer inside the Fractal Design Define R5. Stay tuned. Hey guys, welcome back. So as you can see, we almost have our complete system built into the Fractal Design Define R5. Our motherboard, processor, and cooler is mounted. We have our power supply mounted into the bottom of the case. There are rubber feet underneath the power supply to help prevent against vibration, to go along with the overall theme of silence in this case. We have some of our case wiring tucked through. I have an SSD mounted in the back of the case, one SATA cable running through here. I am opting to leave the 5 1/4 inch drive bays in place. which I will go ahead and put the thumb screws back into those to give me the option to utilize a 5 1/4 inch drive bay. Whether it be a DVD player or a Blu-ray player in the future, this case will be a very nice silent case. So I'm going to maximize that and use this for one of my systems. Overall, the installation of all of our components was very simple. Just buttoning up a few things here, and everything went fairly smoothly. The only one little snag that I kind of had on this installation was the rubber grommet in the bottom for feeding all of your power supply cables through. As you can see, my power supply is sleeved, and as I fed my cables through, the rubber grommet is very flexible, so it did loosen up a little bit, but it was very easy to put it right back in place, finish feeding my cables through, straighten it out, and it is staying firmly in place now. Power supply was very simple to mount. Mounting the components were very easy. There is this hole over here above the power supply where I was able to feed my front panel audio and USB cables through. There was a little clip here for to use some of the included zip ties in the back of the case for cable management that I fed the front panel connectors through, so those aren't coming all the way over from the side, so I was able to get that tucked in nice and neat. We have our 24 pin connector coming up through here. Go ahead and plug that in. Our 4 pin is plugged into the top here. One thing I will note, if you have an 8 pin that's not a 4+4 pin, that is actually a solid 8 pin cable, it might be a little difficult to route through that top grommet because it is very tight. So if your power supply doesn't have the 4+4 pin cable for the CPU power connector on your motherboard, if it is a solid 8 pin cable, it is going to be a little tight getting it through that upper port. If we go ahead and take a look at the back side here, we can see some of our cable management. I'm utilizing the included fan controller to control the 2 case fans. So we have our SATA connector, SATA power connector, tightening that down, and I'm just going to go ahead and use some of the included Velcro straps here, kind of wrap them around my cables a little bit to hold them in place so we don't get any view from the side. Now this is the non-windowed version of the Fractal Design Define R5, and the price point of this case is $109.99. The windowed version is only $10 more. So we can see here with these easy Velcro straps, we're able to just strap in, pretty much get our wires wired up here, get our system wired up, go ahead and feed our Velcro, if we have taken it out, back through, which is fairly simple. Tuck any wires that you want to have it hold down, kind of position them in place. Go ahead and push that Velcro down. It's very secure Velcro, so it does hold it in place very nicely. And there are some straps here on the front for zip ties if you were to have possibly radiators and a bunch of fans running through the front of the case and a bunch of cables. There are straps in the front of the case and along the bottom of the case here that you could put zip ties through to secure those cables as well, so they weren't just dangling freely in the open here for everybody to see. So with all of our wiring buttoned up, let's go ahead and put our backside panel on. And with the included space in the rear of the case, that's fairly simple. Without being overly tedious on my cables that are in the back, I'm able to just push the panel in place, secure it with the 2 thumb screws that are held onto the side of the panel, and when we look inside the case, we have a very clean cable management. So, lots of accessories included with the Define R5. Lots of space for cable management so that the inside of your computer especially if you were going to have the windowed version of the case. It's very clean in appearance, plus having the extra cable management capability allows the airflow so that there is no restriction inside the case. I have removed the 5 3.5-inch hard drive bays here. I'm going to leave the 3 in the bottom so I can add hard drive expandability. We did have the 120 gig SSD mounted, as you saw in the rear of the case. And with these top removed and these stock case fans, that'll allow me ample airflow coming through to my cooler here to exhaust out of the rear of the case. One other thing I wanted to mention about the fans included with the Fractal Design R5, they do have on the blade of the fan, they have small fins right on the inside of the fan blade here that help reduce the noise created by the case fans. So just another nice feature that Fractal Design has included to help with the overall silence and give you a silent cooling or computing solution with the Fractal Define R5. We're going to go ahead and show you guys some benchmark numbers, what our test system, how it performed inside this case to give you an idea of the cooling capability right out of the box from Fractal Design without adding any expanded features or fans that can be added. Stay tuned for that. When we come back, we'll get into our final conclusion. And with the final product completed, our power button has a nice blue illumination around it to show us that our computer is on, and we can also see our blue power LED right in the front of the case right there. Very silent. I do have the computer turned on right now. I do have the fans running at the maximum speed using the 3-speed fan controller in the front of the case. We can turn it down. Even at the maximum speed, they do push a decent amount of air. But overall, the computer is completely quiet. I'm standing right next to it. I can't even hear it running. So, Fractal Design designed a case to be aesthetically pleasing, to be silent with all the noise dampening materials on the chassis of this case, to add the removable panels at the top, to be able to, and the side, to be able to expand the cooling capability of the case and still keep that same design. It's really an overall great case. Lots of features, lots of expandability, lots of space for hard drives. The modular capabilities of the hard drives in the 5.25-inch bays, very easy to remove, very easy to put back in place. The nice vents along the whole side of the front of the case. The filter in the front that's very easy right behind the door to open up, remove, clean, put back in place. Again, open the door, remove the bottom vent or the bottom filter that is the entire length of the case, clean, put back in place. Very simple to clean the case, very simple to keep your components inside clean. And as we could see as we did the installation, very easy to keep our cable management tucked nice and neat. We didn't have to go above and beyond in trying to tuck everything neatly in the back of the case because we put the side panel on and it was able to very easily close, put our 2 thumb screws in, boom, we're all set. The other side of the case with our nice latch mechanism, it's very easy to open up, get to our internal components if we want to swap something out, if we need to work on something. So this case really is designed to hit every target market. This could be a quiet computing solution. It could go in an office environment where you're going to have dead silent computing, but yet it still is a nice aesthetic appearance. Could be a gaming computer. Could be a water-cooled machine. Have all kinds of water cooling loops running through this system. So Fractal Design has really touched every portion of the market in designing this case. Now it does only have 7 expansion slots, so it couldn't run, say, a 4-card SLI or AMD Crossfire setup. But with the 7 expansion slots, you'd still be fully capable to get a full SLI or Crossfire setup into this case, or with our dual cards, even a quad Crossfire or a quad SLI setup. Overall, the case is outstanding. The price point of $109, $10 more, get yourself a side panel window. I would imagine that the window would not cause a lot more noise to be heard, so it would still keep that same quiet computing solution unless you wanted to open it up and allow for more airflow. Thanks for watching our video overview and review of the Fractal Design Define R5. Make sure you click the button right down here to subscribe to our YouTube channel for upcoming video reviews and other upcoming videos from High-Tech Legion. Make sure to visit the hightechlegion.com website for the full written portion of the review, as well as the video and more images of the Fractal Design Define R5. You can also follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/hightechlegion and Facebook at facebook.com/HTL Reviews. Thanks for watching.